So part of the theme of this year's conference was to look back to historical opportunities between Europe and North America, in particular the United States. And what we found was historically there was less regulatory differences between the jurisdictions. There was a greater sense of cooperation, a greater sense of creativity across deal making, and frankly, just a great amount of trust. Some of that has eroded. In particular, the different jurisdictions have increased scrutiny from an antitrust perspective, from a foreign direct investment perspective. There are different legal regimes now in place for data privacy and other items. And so the question became, how do we think about opportunities and how do we think about risks between participants on deal making between Europe and North America? And what we found from the panelists was, while there may be these increased friction points, there's really a reliance on creativity among deal participants. And I think what I was emboldened to hear was, notwithstanding what might be increased economic nationalism or tariffs or other, opportunities to be really a wedge on cross-border deal making, the deal participants are finding ways to get deals done. US acquirers are really looking to Europe for opportunities and value, and European deal makers are really looking to the US for capital, and that's continuing, and the prediction is that that's going to continue. So I think one of the things I'm seeing in my practice, and I think was really confirmed across the panel, was really the premium on doing the work. And so, while there might have been frothy valuations and some compromised deal procedures in 2021 and 2022, I think part of the guidance from the panel was a real premium on making sure, as a seller, you create opportunities to ensure that the review of your business can be streamlined by a multitude of buyers. That means making sure your diligence is organized, perhaps considering a sell-side Q of E, making sure your management team is all aligned in what the narrative is for ongoing opportunities. And I think what we've heard was there are real opportunities for sellers and buyers to continue to do deals and to continue to collaborate if there's this premium on process. It's interesting because the regulatory scrutiny in the States, unlike kind of more enterprise level, European level regimes, is very state specific. And in many ways it's voluntary. It's not obligatory like it might be in Europe. And so what we're seeing is actually with this administration, greater opportunities for deal making and less of a premium on kind of enterprise level regulatory scrutiny. And so we think that it's a great time to do business in the US. Certainly there are some other economic items that are bearing on valuation, for example, like tariffs. But when we think about a headline regulatory scrutiny perspective, we think the US is a great place for deals. We think it's a great place for European acquirers as well. So I think the first and foremost, and this isn't new, but it's an increased emphasis on transactional risk solutions. So, while I won't say that the traditional indemnity deal is dead, I think what, in particular, transatlantic deal participants are realizing is that they need to look to these other resources to try and bridge gaps between buyers and sellers. And in many ways, that's a valuation gap, because when you think about putting the recourse for breaches and reps and warranties, for example, on a third-party insurer, in many ways, that's saying, hey, you seller, we're going to let you walk away and know that we're not going to put our hands back in your pocket, and there won't be an indemnity claim that otherwise might decrease your purchase price. And so when I think about what the participants are doing from a diligence perspective and from a deal perspective, it's increased reliance on these solutions, but it's also making sure from a deal process perspective that they kick the tires, they dot all their I's, they cross all their T's. One, because these transactional risk underwriters will require that. The two, because getting returns is much more harder in this environment. And so you want as much more predictability getting into these deals as you can. So the first piece of advice I'd give is to just jump in with both feet. I think there are incredible businesses for US acquirers in Europe, and frankly, vice versa, that can be integrated with existing operations. I think there needs to be a premium on diligence, and I think there needs to be a premium on understanding sort of cultural differences in personnel. So whether that's implementing or navigating Works Council, for example, in Germany, or understanding what an equity incentive plan is and expectations of US management from European acquirers. It's about understanding, sort of expectations for management and expectations of sellers and buyers, and really doing the diligence to kick the tires on it. But otherwise, I think there are real opportunities, and I believe that the administrations, both in the US and across European geographies, are going to put in place, whether it's lower interest rates or other items, they're going to make deal making much more attractive.